everybody. Monday, April 14th, 2025. My name is Kevin Smith. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Loud Majority Live. We got a jam-packed show for you guys today. Stephen A. Smith, is he running for president in 2028? An interesting thought, interesting notion. We're going to go over a couple of things about that, what that would entail, what that would mean. Excuse me, what that would do. Don't sleep on him. Don't sleep on Stephen A. And I'm going to give you all of the reasons why. Also, an arsonist burned down Governor Josh Shapiro's house, and it fell out of the news cycle faster than a transgender mass shooter. I wonder why. I don't know if you guys have seen the photos of it yet, but it's absolutely horrific. It's absolutely horrific. We're going to show you. We're going to show you that stuff. Horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. Josh Shapiro has young children. I don't want to see anybody condoning buts. I don't want to hear any of that crap. You don't go after people's kids. You don't go after people's children. You just don't do that. I don't care who they are, what their policy. Children and families are off limits, as far as I'm concerned. Also, the president of El Salvador. Apparently, President Bukele, he wanted to get in on the CNN bashing in his Oval Office meeting with the President of the United States today, and he went off the top rope on Caitlin Collins, who's really annoying. I don't know why she thinks she's the main character of this story, but CNN continues to, I don't know, hope, pray, wish for foreign terrorists to be brought back into the country. A little boom, boom off the top rope. We're going to show you that. And Sean Fain, who is the president of the United Auto Workers Union, goes on MSNBC and makes three people look like idiots. Wild stuff. And I want to be clear, I'm not a big fan of Sean Fain. However, he understands what the Trump tariffs are and what their goal is. And if you watch this show for any length of time, you know that I believe, personally, this all comes back to the American auto manufacturing industry. You know that's what I think, and we're going to get into all that. Before we get started, guys, do me a favor and make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button. Share the video out all over the place as we rock, as we roll. Do me a favor, guys. Head on over to loudmajorityusa.com. That's loudmajorityusa.com. Check out the shop. That is the best way to support this show and everything we have going on over here. We have so much stuff on sale. I want to thank everybody who continues to support the show. We got baby clothes. We got a whole bunch of stuff on clearance. You guys can check that out. Whoever puts this website together is probably awesome. Just saying. She's probably awesome, just saying, guys. So head on over to loudmajorityusa.com and use promo code LFA to get 20% off everything on the website. That's promo code LFA to get 20% off everything on the website. Let's dive right on in. Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith, I want to be clear, not as a political figure, as a sports commentator. No doubt. Legend. They make a Mount Rushmore of sports commentary. Stephen A. Smith is on that list. He is on that Mount Rushmore. He's been in the game for a long time. A native of Hollis, New York. Queens boy. So you know I got love for him there. But Stephen A. Smith has been making the rounds in the political sphere, whether it's on shows like Bill Maher or Megyn Kelly or Piers Morgan. He's been making the rounds, and a lot of people have been suggesting that he run for president in 2028. Now, I'm not saying I'd support him for president. I'm not saying he'd be a good president. What I'm saying is, do not count him out. Why? Just like many people, many people, counted President Trump out in 2015. He's not really going to run. He's an outsider. He doesn't understand what it is. What does Donald Trump have that broke him through the scene? That broke him into politics? He's charismatic. He's personable. He's got name recognition. None of that None of that is political. None of it is political. Now, while Stephen A. Smith obviously does lean to the left, he doesn't seem to be as insane on the basic topics, the culture war issues of our day, the 90-10 issues that we talk about all too often. Here was Stephen A. Smith on doing the Sunday shows about his potential run for president.
I saw you mentioned Bill Maher. I saw Steve Bannon was on with Bill Maher, and he was asked what Democrats he worries about. And you know the only name he mentioned as a Democrat he'd be worried about. So are you really thinking about running for president? Is this something you think?
Listen, I have no choice because I've had elected officials, and I'm not going to give their names, elected officials coming up to me. I've had folks who are pundits come up to me. I've had folks that got a lot of money, billionaires and others, that have talked to me about exploratory committees and things of that nature. I'm not a politician. I've never had a desire to be a politician. I just signed a contract extension with ESPN. I am very, very
pretty
happy
good one, too.
With my day job. I'm very happy with my boss. This is a pretty damn good one. Just right. It's a pretty damn good contract. I couldn't be happier. But here's the reality. People have walked up to me, including my own pastor, for crying out loud, who has said to me, you don't know what God has planned for you. At least show the respect to the people who believe in you, who respect you, who believe that you can make a difference in this country, to leave the door open for any possibilities 2 to 3 years down the line. And that's what I've decided to do. But again, whether it's Westmore, Governor Westmore, who I know, or Governor Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania, who I know, Andrew Cuomo, who I had the pleasure of interviewing, who's trying to get back in things and be the next mayor of New York, etc. I see a lot of people that obviously and clearly are more qualified than me. But in the same breath, when you think about what Trump is getting away with, when you think about what you brought up about Steve Bannon,
Now, I want to make it very clear. Do I think he'd be a good president? Not really. However, to the audience watching right now, do you really want to be the person who in 2015 said Donald Trump has no chance? You guys know all the clips. Whether it's politicians or actors or people in the culture, there's never going to be a President Trump. That's not going to happen. That's a George Clooney clip. Take it to the bank. He will not be president. Nancy Pelosi. You really want to be that person? Stephen A. Smith has everything a person needs to get elected president. I want to make that very clear. Do not sleep on Stephen A. Smith. I don't know if he's going to do it. He might not. He certainly take a damn pay cut. Also, I don't think he understands what it actually entails to run for president, the amount of people that are going to be jumping on you left and right, the amount of capitulation you have to do to donors and whatnot. Once you, look, wanting to run for office and running for office are two very, very different things. However, I want to make it very clear. If you sleep on Stephen A. Smith, he will creep up on you. Who do they have? Gavin Newsom destroyed California. Gretchen Whitmer, who, I want to make it very clear, had quite possibly the most embarrassing photograph I've ever seen in my entire life, taken only a couple of days ago. Do I have it here? Yeah. Here's Gretchen Whitmer in the Oval Office, hiding behind a stack of folders. I don't even know what the hell this is. Let me make this smaller for you guys. Does this woman seem like she's ready to be president, hiding in the Oval Office? Does that look like a president? Someone hiding behind a stack of binders? I certainly don't think so. Who else do they have? Governor Josh Shapiro. All right. He seems to be the most normal out of all of them, except for that time he may or may not have covered up somebody's murder. Not the point. Bernie's 2,000 years old and a communist. AOC is a mental midget who has a room temperature IQ. Give me a name. If you think, you know what, I'm going to put the chat up here real quick because I want to know what the chat thinks. Where is it? Boom, boom, boom. Chat, if you think I'm wrong, tell me. Who is more charismatic, has more name recognition, and is as entertaining as Stephen A. Smith to be the Democratic nominee? Give me a name. Don't tell me who you think it's going to be. Tell me who fits those qualifications. A person that is good on camera. A person that is generally liked. I don't have a name, and I do this for a living. If Democrats were smart, they would run an outsider in 2028. And a guy like Stephen A. Smith, I think he would run through the Democratic primary. I think he would mow through the Democratic primary. Matter of fact, I don't think it'd be close. I don't think he would even be close. Moreover, he doesn't have a voting record. So you can't tie him to the Green New Deal. You can't tie him to communism. You can't. Mark Frappede in the Facebook chat says Bill Maher. Well, Bill Maher has upset some people, and we're going to talk about that in a second, because Bill Maher over the weekend, John Fetterman. I mean, you can't have the President of the United States wearing a hoodie, but, okay, all right, that's a name at least. Alex Ann says, am I nuts? I asked for a name. Give me a name of a person who would do better in a Democratic primary than Stephen A. Smith. One name, anybody. In a Democratic primary. Mark says Bill Maher. All right, that would be on that level, because we have entered an era in politics where the outsider has the advantage every single time, because people are done with the status quo. People are done with the same old. We have entered an era where technology is moving us away from the established politicians. Bob R., there isn't one. Exactly. That's the point I'm making. They don't have another one. So if you're Stephen A., why not? Why not do it? AC Knight says Dave Chappelle. I'd probably vote for Dave Chappelle. I'm kidding. I would think about it, though. Huge Dave Chappelle fan. Guys, hit that thumbs up button. Share the video out all over the place, because we're going to get to Bill Maher in a second, as he broke the internet over the weekend with his meeting with Donald Trump. Before we get to that, Old Glory Bank.
When big banks decide who gets access to America's financial systems and who doesn't, who do you think gets left out? Middle Americans who proudly wave their pro-America values. Cancel culture in banking is corrosive. It limits your participation in a vibrant, free market economy. Fortunately, you can fight back. You now have the opportunity to invest in the bank that's investing in a fair American banking system, one based in freedom. Ownership in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank, is here. Old Glory Bank is a full-service FDIC-insured bank that's the alternative to overreaching, un-American big banks. We stand for privacy, security, and liberty. We stand for freedom, family, faith, and the flag. We stand for all the values you stand for, and for the values big banks can't stand. So help keep banking in the hands of Main Street, not Wall Street. To invest in Old Glory Bank, go to oldglorybank.com.
Guys, support the people who are supporting the parallel economy by going to oldglorybank.com. That's oldglorybank.com. Consider setting up an account with them, guys. I've had their CEO, Mike Ring, on this show plenty of times. He's a great man doing great things. Support the guys over at Old Glory Bank by going to oldglorybank.com. So, Bill Maher broke the internet over the weekend because he attended a dinner at the White House with President Trump, Kid Rock, and Dana White. I want to be clear. If I could get a ticket to a dinner between Kid Rock, Dana White, Bill Maher, and Donald Trump, I would do everything imaginable to be at that dinner. It was probably an awesome time. Now, Bill had a about a 13-minute monologue on it that I would urge you all to go watch. I know people don't like Bill Maher, but it shined a light on a lot of things. It shined a light on many things for people that are not like us, for Bill Maher's audience, for the people who think that Donald Trump is this no good, mean, very bad person. It turns out, behind closed doors, Donald Trump is hilarious. They spent most of the evening laughing. Gave them a tour of the White House. He showed him the Bill Clinton room. I'll let the chat figure out what I mean by that. But more than that, it got down to things that we all should agree upon. Closing the border being one of them. The 80-20 issues that affect this country every single day. Here was part of Bill Maher's response.
Moving Israel's embassy to Jerusalem, loved it. The border did need to be controlled. I'm glad the cops are getting their morale back. DEI had gone too far. Biological men shouldn't be playing women's sports. Europe should pay for their defense. And of course, it makes sense that Arab countries should take in Arab refugees, like the million Syrians who wound up in Germany when Saudi Arabia took none. He said to me, "You're right, they took none." I said, "Well, you should remind your boyfriend in Saudi Arabia that the next time you see him." He laughed. I never felt I had to walk on eggshells around him. And honestly, I voted for Clinton and Obama, but I would never feel comfortable talking to them the way I was able to talk with Donald Trump. That's just how it went down.
That's just how. It's not the beginning of that I want you to pay attention to. It's the end. He would have never spoken so freely with President Clinton and President Obama. Why? Because Donald Trump's big thing, Donald Trump's, feeling he gives off, more than the policies, is that he's one of us. He's one of us. I feel like if you met Donald Trump, any one of you, you could go up to Donald Trump and just as easily discuss baseball with him as you could foreign policy. Discuss music the way you and I would talk at a bar. I've long said Donald Trump's biggest appeal is that he's the guy at the end of the bar that you just, shooting the breeze with. That's his biggest appeal. Now, Bill also went on to say in that he wishes Donald Trump would do more of that in public than just in private. And this is where I disagree. Why? Because anyone who has ever hung out with their boss knows that your boss is a lot different at work than he is on his personal time. Hi, Dave. Donald Trump is projecting strength onto the world. But it turns out he's not an asshole. He's just a shrewd businessman. A complex negotiator who's going to win no matter what. And he doesn't care if the people over at CNN don't agree with him. Because when it comes to normal people, when it comes to you and I, Donald Trump has our back. Because he's just the guy at the end of the bar who happens to have a couple $1 billion. That is Donald Trump's selling point. That is Donald Trump's modus operandi. Is that he's just like us. He's just like us. And he wants what we want. He wants good paying jobs around the country. In places that coastal elites have forgotten. I got to do an argument the other day with a friend of mine who works in finance, big finance guy. And he was talking about Donald Trump's tariffs and how they were going to affect us. Maybe not right now, but down the road. And what I said to him was, America has been a financial economy for 50 years. Where the only people who really succeeded were the financier guys. The market went up, they made money. The market went down, they made money. They bought up a company and sold it overseas for parts, they made money. But Midwestern towns, coal towns, steel towns, auto manufacturing towns, traded in good, high-paying jobs for heroin so that guys on Wall Street could raise their quarterly earnings. And I told him, guys like you had a really good run, but your run is over now, and you better get used to it. And Sean Fain, who is the president of the United Auto Workers Union, said basically the same thing on MSNBC. Now, look, I think Sean Fain, bit of a communist. He's far, 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 far too liberal for me. However, he knows what's best for his workers. He knows what is needed to build up the auto manufacturer. Because Sean Fain, for all of his problems that I have with him, started on the assembly line and rose his way up to become union president. Here he was sitting down with Michael Steele, Simone Sanders, two people who have never had real jobs in their lives, and then some other white lady who I don't even know who the hell she is, saying that actually Donald Trump's tariffs are great for the American worker.
Blanket tariffs that are happening all across the board elsewhere, aren't they hurting the auto manufacturers and, by extension, the workers in the plants? Already one plant has closed, and they're gonna find the facts for me in my ear. But I was reading just last week that in anticipation of the tariffs, one of the plants in the South said, you know what, we're just gonna pause. We're not gonna be doing any more expanding because we don't know how this is gonna affect us. So we're not having a real... Donald Trump is not doing what other presidents have done in the past. This is very different. So this is dangerous. And I do think the people that are walking around talking about like the sky is falling, Chicken Little, they are probably right this time, no?
Now watch this union president. I want to be clear. Simone Sanders is not an idiot. She's just never lived in the real world. Watch Sean Fain rip her apart.
No, I don't believe they are. No, look, here's the problem. We're talking about tariffs on everything under the sun right now. Now, that, you know, we've been very clear. We do believe, and we know, when it comes to auto, when it comes to heavy truck and agricultural implement, we know that tariffs will influence these companies to do the right thing and reinvest in this country and reinvest in factories in this country. You know, it's interesting, you know, Stellantis, as Trump was announcing the tariff, you know, announced at the same moment that they were going to lay off 800 people. That didn't change as Trump was making an announcement. You know, to me, it's just trying to bait people. At the end of the day, we believe that Stellantis and these companies will bring work back because of these tariffs. I mean, look what they've done without them. You know, let's talk about the realities of what, you know, and this is the thing, you know, I've been reading a lot of this lately. Going back, in 1992, I voted for Ross Perot. You know why I voted for Ross Perot? For one reason, because he was the only candidate that talked about how devastating NAFTA would be to American jobs and to our manufacturing base. And he talked about that giant sucking sound. You know, I've read this book here in the last week, you know, Save Your Jobs, Save Our Country, Why NAFTA Must Be Stopped Now. You know what's interesting? Since then, Ross Perot's become a prophet. Since NAFTA was inception in 1993, we've lost 90,000 manufacturing facilities in this country. Millions of jobs, and these weren't, you know, low-end jobs. These were jobs that paid decent wages, had good benefits, retirement security.
No, I agree with you.
They built communities.
But here's my thing.
But here's the deal.
NAFTA was 30 years ago. The situation that we are dealing with right now, and I agree with you. I'm on the side of the folks that said this did the American workers wrong. Absolutely. But right now, we are dealing with a situation where it's not. These are blanket tariffs. We are dealing with a situation where manufacturing is not going to come back in 2 weeks. So I am really struggling to understand how UAW has aligned itself with Trump on this.
Yes, you're right, Simone Sanders. The reason why you struggle to understand this is because you've never worked in a factory. You don't know how any of this works. Your partner, Michael Steele, that you're sitting next to, was one of the chief architects of NAFTA.
And I think more specifically, Mr. Fain, just real quick on that point, how do tariffs create jobs?
So first off, NAFTA is still causing us to lose jobs in this country.
That's true.
Our broken trade system is still causing us to lose jobs in this country. And no one from either party has been willing to even address the issue for 30 plus years. That's the first thing. And we support tariffs as a tool in the toolbox, not the end-all, be-all. We got to fix the broken trade system. But tariffs are a motivator to make these companies do the right thing when we're talking auto. I can't speak for, Penguins and all this other.
When we're talking about auto, yes, it is a part of a larger plan. That larger plan includes tax cuts for the middle class. It includes no taxes on tips. It includes no taxes on Social Security, no taxes on overtime. Because guess what? I got news for you. This is the way it's going to go. You ready for this? If Donald Trump is able to pass no tax on overtime, those factories that Sean Fain represents, those factory workers that are a member of his union, they're going to be willing. They're going to want to work as much as humanly possible because they're not going to be taxed on the overtime. Therefore, more cars will come off the assembly line. More cars off the assembly line increases supply, lowers the price. That is how you do it. You do it by incentivizing work. You do it by incentivizing people to stay on those lines. Now, the people who make the cars are going to have more money in their pocket. Now they're going to have more money in their pocket to purchase the vehicles they just made that are cheaper because they made so many of them. And that is how you bring back the American auto industry. Simone Sanders was right. No American president has ever done this. And what have we seen? We've seen a hollowing out of the middle class. We've seen a destruction in the American family. In many places in this country, it is almost impossible to purchase a home. You're going to see states beginning to fight for these companies to open up factories in their particular areas. And all it takes is one, man. For anybody who lives in one of these, these one industry towns, you know what can happen when that one industry comes in. But more importantly, you know what happens when that one industry leaves. You go from a good factory job to working at the gas station for minimum wage. And then you get depressed. You can't provide for your family, so you have less kids. Maybe you pick up the bottle. Maybe you get on the needle. This is what happens with offshoring good jobs in this country. And Wall Street had a great time of it for a very, very long time. And you're going to have to forgive me if I absolutely don't care if they struggle for a little bit. Guys, we're going to move on because I got so much more that I want to make sure that I get to. Make sure you are hitting that thumbs up button wherever you are watching. Rocking and rolling and rocking. I'm having a good time today. Monday. Hope everybody had a lovely Palm Sunday yesterday. Hope everybody has some fun Easter plans with the family. I know I certainly do. It's a good one. Easter's a more relaxed holiday in my family. You don't have to, stress out over gifts and everything. It's just about God and eating. And, two things I'm a huge fan of. Guys, we'll be back in 1 second before we get to that Mike Lindell.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sail because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
Guys, head on over to MyPillow.com, promo code LOUD. That's MyPillow.com, promo code LOUD for up to 80% off at their big mega sale, guys. Check out Mike Lindell over at MyPillow.com, promo code LOUD. So, Governor Josh Shapiro over the weekend, thank God he's okay. Thank God he's okay. As I said, Governor Shapiro has young children, and an arsonist attempted to set fire, or did set fire to his house. Absolutely horrifying. I'm going to show you guys the pictures in a second, but let's go over the story. A man charged in connection with the arson of Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro over the weekend allegedly climbed the residence fence and used a hammer to break in the window and threw Molotov cocktails in order to start the blaze. Say prosecutors, I'm not going to say the name of the assassin or the arsonist, attempted assassin. I just try not to do that on this show. He was charged with attempted criminal homicide, aggravated arson, burglary, terrorism, and other counts in connection with the early morning attack. The arson attack lasted for several minutes. Shapiro and his first lady, as well as other guests and staff, were inside of the Harrisburg residence when the fire erupted around 2 a.m. No one was injured in the fire, and the governor's family was safely evacuated. However, prosecutors say the residence sustained substantial damage. Yeah, I would say so. Here are some of the photographs of inside of Governor Shapiro's home. I mean, look, I want to make this very, 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 very clear in no uncertain terms. If anybody's got a problem with that, you can turn this show off right now. We do not condone this crap in any way, shape, or form. This is a travesty that somebody did this. I don't care if you don't like Shapiro. I don't care if you don't like Democrats. You don't try to burn someone alive, okay? We're not in Syria, okay? You don't burn people alive because you don't like them. More importantly than that, it's very odd. Very, very, very odd how this story took over the media. Took it over for several days over the weekend. Until we found out that it turns out, no. It wasn't some evil white supremacist. No. Was it an anti-Semite on the right? Josh Shapiro is obviously a proud Jewish man. Supports Israel. No. Wasn't that. Was it one of the right-wing extremists, the insurrectionists that live under every rock in this nation, according to the people on MSNBC? Nope. It was a BLM activist. It was a BLM activist who was probably pissed off about Palestine. Okay? A country that, I want to be clear, doesn't exist. If you guys want to go to Palestine, you gotta make sure you make a right at Hogwarts, go about a mile up, then make a left at Narnia, and then you'll be somewhere near Palestine. Doesn't exist. Matter of fact, it's never existed. But different conversation for a different time. The arsonist of Harrisburg turned himself in to the Pennsylvania State Police on Sunday and admitted harboring hatred toward Shapiro. When asked during a police interview what he would have done if he had found Shapiro inside the residence, he said that he had brought a hammer with him to beat him to death. Video surveillance shows the suspect climbing over an exterior fence at the Shapiro residence, approaching the piano room window on the south side of the home and breaking the exterior window with a hammer, which he said he planned to use. The criminal affidavit said he then drew a Molotov cocktail, which is obviously a tool of left-wingers, threw it inside the broken glass shortly after flames were seen in the exterior of the home, the probable cause affidavit said. Now, obviously, this guy turned himself in. He turned himself in, which means he's got a story to tell. This will be a developing story. This will continue to unfold over the course of the next several days and weeks and months. Of that, I have no doubt. But as I said, I want to make it very clear. We do not condone this crap. We do not, I don't want to see any of this. Yeah, but he did that. I don't want to see any of that. None of that. We're better than they are. We're not like them. You want to beat somebody? You beat the crap out of them at the ballot box. You don't go set their damn house on fire with their family inside of it, okay? I don't care who it is. That's a great question. How the hell can you just climb the fence of the governor's mansion, Pennsylvania? What the hell are we doing here? I don't want to see any of this. It ought to be totally condemned, and I hope this man gets the justice he so rightly deserves. I hope he gets the justice he so rightly deserves. Some other people who are getting the justice they so rightly deserve is this illegal immigrant that we deported from the United States to his home country of El Salvador. Now, the Supreme Court ruled in a 9-0 decision that a district court judge does not have the right to dictate foreign policy of the United States. But that was not enough for Caitlin Collins over at CNN, who is bemused, who is befuddled by the idea that America would take an illegal immigrant gang member and deport him to his home country. She's very confused by this. So much so, she's not in the shot, but you can feel she's probably sitting around with resting Joker face, as I like to call it, asking, damn. Let me go back because I want to show you. We're going to get to Caitlin Collins in a second. I skipped over. I wanted to show you Josh Shapiro's response to this because you can see you know what? We'll skip that. We'll go to Caitlin Collins. What the hell? I already moved on. So Governor Shapiro, I hope everybody's okay. But Caitlin Collins, in the meeting with President Bukele of El Salvador, asked an incredibly stupid question, an incredibly dumb question. Will the United States or El Salvador be facilitating the return of an illegal immigrant gang member who was found by 2 different courts to be a member of a gang? Will we be returning him to the United States? Here was Stephen Miller dropping the hammer off the top rope on Caitlin Collins.
Would you answer that question also, please?
Yes, gladly. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So, it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As 2 immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So we had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State, nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan
But
to
the
ask
Supreme
for
Court's
permission to
asking
get it
to.
back?
And what was the ruling in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
In our favor.
in our favor against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual, at El Salvador's sole discretion, was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time.
Now, that beatdown, I know at the very end, the mic wasn't too good for Stephen Miller, but that coherent, obvious English argument, that wasn't enough for resting Joker face Caitlin Collins, who for some reason thinks that the Oval Office or the White House press briefing room is like her debate podium. You don't get to debate the President of the United States. As a matter of fact, you don't even get to debate the President of El Salvador. You ask your question, you get the answer, you shut your mouth, you go back on TV, and then bitch and moan about it, okay? This isn't a conversation, okay? It's not a back and forth. But then she decided to go with the President of El Salvador. Will he be facilitating? Let me make sure I get this right. Will he be facilitating the return of an El Salvadorian citizen, gang member, twice convicted, to the United States? And Bukele, it wasn't enough for Stephen Miller to throw the haymaker at Caitlin Collins. President Bukele, he wanted to get in on the action. But then Marco Rubio said, no. How about my turn? I'd like to smack this one around too.
Can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to be not suggesting that I'll smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right? How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
You could release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. We're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into our
there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people. Marco, do you have something to say about it?
Yeah, Stephen outlined it. I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin. Except for Venezuela, that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
And that's what the Supreme Court held, by the way, to Marco's point. The Supreme Court said exactly what Marco said, that no court has the authority to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. We won a case 9-0, and people like CNN are portraying it as a loss, as usual, because they want foreign terrorists in the country who kidnap women and children. But President Trump, his policy is foreign terrorists that are here illegally get expelled from the country, which, by the way, is a 90-10 issue.
90-10. 90-10. My favorite part of that whole exchange was J.D. Vance just sitting there going, just kind of nodding along, smiling, taking it all in, wafting greatness all over the room. I'm not sure what about this is complicated. If you're a terrorist, you don't get to live here. If you're a terrorist, you go home. And if your home country sees fit to put you into what I have to assume. And look, I want to be clear. You see photographs of that jail in El Salvador? Boy, does that look like it sucks. Does it look like it sucks to be there? You're crammed in, half naked, with like 1,000 other people in one room. It's probably 110 degrees there. There's just a constant smell of locker room for the rest of your life. I have no doubt that sucks. Do you know what else sucks? That time 3 MS-13 gang members took machetes and hacked up a 14-year-old girl in Brentwood, Long Island. My Long Islanders, you remember that? Took a teenage girl into the woods and hacked her up with a machete. And this ain't like Game of Thrones, where when you cut somebody's head off, it's like this isn't Braveheart, okay? You hack at a person until you completely dismember them. Yeah, Caitlin Collins, I'm sure these people don't live next door to you. Chat, you remember that? Where's my live chat here? Chat, you remember that? Where are my Long Islanders in the chat? That story took over our neighborhood. That story took over Long Island. There are parts of Long Island. People think Long Island, they think like the Hamptons. And they think like the Gold Coast. No. Where we live, where the poor people on Long Island live. Hazel Kitty knows. Nancy knows. Vintage Lugau knows. Gina Marie knows. Creative Aaron knows. You're right. You know what, Creative Aaron? You got that right. You got that right. Because here's what the state of New York is more concerned about. Are they concerned with deporting animals from our country? No. No. They're concerned that Brentwood High School Brentwood or Wyandanch High School has a Native American insignia as their mascot. So they've got to remove that. Because that's what's really dangerous to the world. Thanks a lot, Governor Eyebrows. Thanks a lot. Guys, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button because we're going to talk about more people that are going to get the proverbial and physical boot out of this country in just 1 second. Before we do that, guys, head on over to lfatv.us. That's lfatv.us. That's your home base, your mothership, your landing pad for all things LFA TV related. Check out the LFA TV store. And while you guys are there, consider becoming monthly donors over at LFA TV. That's the best way to help us keep the lights on over here. Best way to help us keep the lights on over in these parts. Oh, yeah. So one more person who is going to get his terrorist sympathizing views and physical body way the hell out of this country and back to Syria. You know, the tolerant land that is Syria, where you can protest out in the street with virtually no repercussions whatsoever. Mahmoud Khalid is gone. He will be getting the boot from this. Mahmoud, he's gone. He's not Spanish, but I can't say goodbye, my friend, in Arabic. Later, bro. You know why? Because holding a student visa or a green card in America is a privilege. And I'm sorry, you do not get to organize on behalf of a radical Islamic terror organization in Manhattan. You don't get to do it. Kevin, but free speech. No, you don't get to support terrorism in our country. You don't get to do that. You know why? Because there's a big-ass hole in Lower Manhattan, and about 40 of my friends have like 6 dozen cancers because, we didn't really pay attention to those people. Now, I want to be clear about something. Am I for protest? Protest your heart's desire. Okay? However, a person should feel gratitude for being welcomed into the United States and studying at our top credentialed universities, and not think that having a student visa or having a green card is license for you to use the concept of American freedom to undermine its very foundation. Here was Stephen Miller on that.
Will Mahmoud Khalil be deported from the United States? Quick answer on that, please.
Yes, he will, as will anyone who preaches hate for America. His organization said they wanted to eradicate Western civilization. Look, under this country, under this administration, under President Trump, people who hate America, who threaten our citizens, who rape, who murder, and who support those who rape and murder are going to be ejected from this country. And I just wish a fraction of the media outrage that we had over deporting terrorists and deporting monsters and deporting their sympathizers from this country was spent crying over the blood that was shed of American women and children over the last 4 years, or crying over the 500,000 children that Biden trafficked into this country, or crying over the neighborhoods destroyed by gangs and drugs and fentanyl. Cemeteries are filled with tombstones from Americans that were killed by Joe Biden and Mayorkas and his administration, suffering beyond imagination. We just arrested an illegal alien who committed sex crimes against 20 children. Sex crimes against 20 children freed by a sanctuary city. So I'll reserve my sympathy and my empathy for the Americans being brutalized by these monsters, and we will not apologize for getting these monsters the hell out of our country, Bill.
We will not apologize for it. Here's that story that Stephen Miller referenced. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested Gilberto Avila Yarra, an Ecuadorian man without valid documentation. Wow, that's a real butter soft way of putting it, Newsweek. Without documentation, who has been charged with more than 20 counts of sex crimes against a minor outside of Boston. Remember last week we showed you, what the hell's her name? I keep saying Michelle Wu, but that's not it. Mayor Wu, forgot her first name. Immigrants are welcome here, including those who rape children. Newsweek reached out to the mayor's office, but didn't hear back with a comment. Yeah, you don't get to live here. But for all the people I can see in the chat already who are going, Kevin, you're only mad. You're only mad at Mahmoud Khalili, whatever the hell his name is. Mahmoud, not going to live here very much longer. You're only mad because of Israel. You're only mad because of Israel. First off, if you think that's the case, you can go, there you go, as we say here in New York. That's number one. But number two, Piers Morgan on Bill Maher gave another example of a sort of person that we do not need to have in America. Here's Piers.
I'm okay with that. All right, what if I was a young student at Columbia, they're on a green card, British, come in, happy to be here, do all my paperwork, get to Columbia, and I start leading a group which is a bunch of white supremacists, and we start terrorizing black students in the way that they were terrorizing Jewish students. Well, hang on. In that circumstance, would we all be as comfortable with this, or is it the reality which was exposed by the mobs at Columbia, which is that for some reason Jews get treated differently to anybody else when it comes to this kind of thing? Because if that had been, honestly, white supremacists treating black students like that, they would be out the country in 10 minutes. In 10 minutes.
That is completely true.
What about if he had said all this at his green card interview? Would he have got a green card? No. No. If he said, I support a prescribed terror group in the United States, you're not coming in on a green card. All Marco Rubio is doing, it seems to me, is taking it back to that scenario and saying, well, if you'd been honest then, and by the way, he was dishonest on his green card application about other stuff, which is another part of the equation, which might in itself disqualify him from staying in the country. But the idea that he would have said, I support Hamas, I support a global intifada, I support the destruction of Western civilization, now give me a green card to come and live in America, fuck off.
All right, I have to end it there.
I I didn't realize he cursed at the end of that. Sorry about that, everybody. Piers Morgan doesn't normally do that, so I thought I was safe. My apologies. But he's right. Have a good day. No one but American citizens has the right to be in this country. I don't care if your country sucks. It turns out that a lot of people's country sucks. And it is not my responsibility to take in the totality of the people who suck all over the world. It's not my job. It's not my job to harbor terrorists all over the world. It's not the responsibility of Europe to take in the most radical people in our culture. Maybe, just maybe, it's time for these people to get their act together. Just maybe. It's time they get their act together. Guys, it is just about 2 o'clock. Will Johnson is going to be starting any minute now. So I want to thank everybody so much for tuning in. I hope everybody had a lovely, lovely weekend. I hope you guys enjoy the Easter week. I want to make sure I get that out first and foremost. As I close out today, guys, head on over to loudmajorityusa.com. That's loudmajorityusa.com. That is the best way to support this show and everything we've got going on over here. You guys can use promo code LFA to get 20% off everything on the website. That's promo code LFA to get 20% off everything on the website. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. You know, I'll pop the live chat up while we are waiting for Will to come in. Is Will in here yet? Is Will in here yet? 2 o'clock. Will be starting any second, guys. Let's see. Great show. Blocker runner. There we go, guys. There's Will Johnson. I will catch you guys back live tomorrow. Until then, everybody, stay loud.